Hello, welcome to Mindset to Results. And today our guest is John Hewitt, and we will speak about the second step for exponential growth. And this is the importance of listening. Hi, John.
Good morning.
Good morning. You're most welcome to our podcast. And let's speak about listening and why it is so important to achieve exponential growth and success in business.
It's the most important part of having the greatest system is that it has to be continually improving. If you're not improving, your competitor's gaining on you, and the only way to improve is to listen and learn from everyone around you. In Sam Walton, who wrote founder of Walmart, he wrote a book called Made in America. And he said, you just don't learn from people in your own industry. You learn from all of your experience and all of your consumer experience. And so whether you're in a restaurant or a hotel or a plane or any kind of consumer experience, you need to be constantly on the prowl to learn. And it's we as human beings aren't good at communicating, and the number one problem we have is the inability to listen carefully. And there's really two ways to listen. One is what most people do, I think, is they just listen in anticipation of talking. So they're ready to, instead of carefully grasping what they're hearing, they hear something that triggers a response, and they're anxious to say it. And so they lose the following of what they're listening to. So I think that first part about listening is that you have to be prepared to focus on the other person and the other and what they're saying. The second thing is that you need to understand that your goal is constant improvement, and it's so hard to improve if you try to think of everything yourself. So the people around you, your in my case, my employees, my customers, my franchisees, those people all have there's diamonds in the rough. There's the needle in the haystack. There's always information to be learned, and you have to be on the lookout for doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and also we know that people usually hear what they want to hear. Yes, so they can listen and just accept information which is in alignment with what they want to hear. Yeah, so how do you think we can help people to really listen and hear the whole the whole picture?
I think that's true. That one of my biggest weaknesses is that oftentimes someone will be telling a story or talking and explaining something, and I will think I know what they mean, and I'm impatiently interrupt them and discuss it without I haven't done two things. One is I either haven't grasped where they were going and the full information they were going to give me, and or even when I do, I don't make them understand that I have. So they leave the conversation or that conversation without understanding that I've really grasped what they were saying.
Why do you think that it is so important for people to know that they are heard? Yes, and how it can improve the communication in the company between people and executives?
I think that everyone needs to feel valued, and um, if they're not allowed to state their opinion, or or they're not listened to or answered, then they do not feel like a contributing part of the organization. And it's very much an important part of culture to make people feel good about themselves, that they they can be heard, that when I think that when two people like you and me, if we have a discussion, we're rarely going to think alike. If we think alike, one of us is useless, and we're rarely going to think alike. And I believe that if you and I think differently, the answer is somewhere in between. Neither one of us are going to be rarely 100% correct. It's usually going to be a somewhere in between. It's not, it's rarely 50-50 in the middle, but somewhere in between, what you say has value and what I say has value. And when you lose that, you lose culture, you lose the spirit of the other person.
Mhm. And how do you think is important for executives and business owners, people who work with the teams in leadership position, to be open-minded, to hear somebody else's opinion and respect other people? Because usually what happens when people get to some level of success, they have their own vision and they have their own way. And they're not always open-minded to allow other people opinions. Yes, like to show in the communication that they value other people, and how important is this to embrace the creativity and that spirit in people, that they can easily share what they think and how they can also impact their whole success.
I think that it's one of the biggest diseases in management is that syndrome of thinking you know better, and believing that you know better, and you rise to a level in your career where you are above your competence level, and or but even if you're competent at what you do, you can't be extraordinary without including others on the team, their opinion. And you can never be perfect, of course. You're always going to be mistakes and make mistakes. And you always have to be cognizant of improvement. And if you're, again, if all the ideas come from yourself, came from me, then I'm very limited into how quickly and how well we can grow. So I need to incorporate the ideas and concepts of others to be truly extraordinary. I'm just gonna, if it's limited to myself, then I'm gonna be above average at best. I'm never going to get to be extraordinary without others joining in and being heard and participating in planning the future.
Yes, I think that this is very important to understand that there is perception. Yeah, we have perception, and everyone sees the situation from their perception, from their point of view, and how people look at situation. And there can be so many people looking at the same situation and have different pictures. Yes, and everyone looks and sees what is according to their programs, like to their so-called paradigms. Yes, and this is how to get the real picture of the situation, this is important to be open to listen. So if we understand that we can see only part of the situation and other people also can see from their point of view there. So when we combine all these pieces, then we can really have the whole picture and it can help us to find the best solutions.
When I've heard the phrase forever, perception is reality. And for the most of my life, I said, oh, that's obvious. It is. But, but there needs to be a corollary on that. Your perception is your reality. So it's not perception is reality. And if we both write down our perception, then it's going to be often different. And so your perception is your own reality. In order to come up with the reality, you have to come up with a team perception.
Yes, exactly. This is what I wanted to do, us to discuss more, because the fact is that we don't see life as it is. Yes, because for different people, life can be different, even the same situations, but people can really get so differently. And for executives, it is so important to understand that people see reality through their prism of those of their beliefs and all what they have in their subconscious mind, like all those programs. They allow them to see only one segment. Yes, and this is how they see it. And this is also helps when we deal with people and we can want to solve different situations. So that is why how important to listen. Yes, because when we listen, and this is how we can see what like segment of that they see. Yes, and this is how we can connect, because sometimes people can communicate but they can see it in different levels and they just don't see it at the same. Yes, and this is why it is difficult to find the solution. But when we're open to listen and we give ourselves that time to understand what picture that person has in his mind, and then we can correlate it with our picture, and this is how we can find the common points.
When an example of that is of how difficult it is to understand the other person is, and let's start off from this vantage point. People aren't going to explain the way they feel well or totally. Sometimes sometimes you got to read between the lines, and even if they're trying, they're not communicating effectively. When I go to take one of my teammates one or more of my teammates to an important meeting with another company or another group, afterwards we do a debriefing, and I'm so amazed that constantly I say, well, what did you think of the meeting and what were your takeaways? And if there's two or three of us, we all come away with different takeaways from the meeting, from the discussion. And so we have to understand that it's very, very difficult. Communication is something that's never ever solved, in my opinion, in any relationship, whether it's a spouse or a business or with your children, with your friends. It's never solved. You just have to continue to work at it. And it starts with listening intently and trying to make sure that you understand. And the only way you can really come close to a understanding is after I hear you, then I regurgitate it and say, I think this is what I just heard. And then, and only then, can you be sure that you've understood.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and especially when it comes to the situation when it is like I'm right and you're wrong. Yes, like some people think that they're so right and they just sure that they're right and they can blame other people and just tell them that they're wrong. And if they understand that that person also can be right. So because some situation, it is not that I'm right and you're wrong, it is just that person can see the same situation from the different perception and he can also be right. But in order to understand that, we have to be open to listen, not just be so confident in that we are right, and then not leave any other space for other people to speak to us and show their perception.
Exactly. And it is, again, that there are two or three big diseases in management. And one of them is the know-it-all attitude and the failure to listen or learn. One of my favorite CFOs, he gave me a huge compliment. We would argue all the time. I was CEO and he was CFO, and he would argue all the time. And he said, one of the things I admire about you, he said, we will argue and you'll come to a decision. And then a month later or 2 months later, you'll come back and say, I've thought about what you said. And I think you were right. I think I need to change my position. And so you need to be prepared to listen and learn and think about what the other person said. Not just, you're rarely going to, on face value, are smart people going to change their mind. And so sometimes you need to muddle on it and think about it before you make a final decision.
Yes, I like how you said that you have to think about it. Yes, and this is so true. We really have to think because usually communication happens on autopilot and people can say something automatically because thinking is not the same as mental activity. And if we look at people how they communicate, most of the time they communicate by that using their mental activity because they have certain patterns of words, phrases, and if they hear something, it triggers something in them and they just give automatic response. So why it is so important to think and respond instead of react? Because if people just react, they can say something even before thinking. Yes, and that's why it's so important to think. It means that whatever happens, we shouldn't react. We should take pause, think, then get some more information and take time to make conclusions and then to speak about the situation.
I think that's one of the things that I do is when someone hits me with unusual information out of the blue, I say, well, I haven't thought about that before, or I haven't thought through that. Let me think about that overnight or over a few days. Let me think about that. That's an interesting thought that hadn't occurred to me. And so few times do people do that. They just rattle off the first thing off the top of their head. And again, it doesn't make the other person feel important, feel valued, and it doesn't do value. And in reality, it does not do value to that relationship.
Yes, exactly. This is very good, a good habit to tell, as you said, that if something that we don't agree at this moment and we don't like, maybe, and yes, instead of just rejecting immediately, yeah, we can say that okay, that is interesting. Yeah, so that is interesting, and then we can change even topic and speak about something else. Yes, instead of just starting arguing and disputing and telling that no, it is not correct. Yes, because again, this is just another perception of another person, and if we respond this way, it also will help us to have good relations with people, even if their opinion or attempts are different from the way how we think.
Precisely.
And also, I like how Bob Proctor, who was my mentor, told about one principle which will always make you be to be a good communicator, and really will make people to like speaking to you, and to have good relations with people. And this principle is to leave people with the impression of increase. And he also learned it from his mentor, Earl Nightingale. So it means that whoever we meet and we speak, we always can leave them with the impression of increase. It means to leave them in the better state than they were before meeting us. It means that we can give them compliment, yes, to make them feel good, and it can be really sincere. Always we can find something good in people, yes, and can acknowledge them for that. And also we can empower them by the way how we speak to them, and we can listen to them and give them value every time when we meet.
Yeah, there. In Dale Carnegie, my favorite business author, he learned that the best way to get people to respect you is by asking questions. And if you Google Dale Carnegie, he has a list of the 100 best questions to ask other people to to make them feel worthwhile, and make them enjoy the relationship.
Yeah, because we should always remember that the most important person in the world is the person we speak with. Yeah, because for everyone, he's the most important person. So when we meet people and we treat them as they are the most important person, we give them attention, we listen to them, we care, we empower them. This is how everyone will be feeling that he is really the most important person. And
Exactly. And I think you froze, Art. Can you hear me? I'm not sure who's frozen, you or me, but I can't hear you. You're back again, it looks like.
yeah, I can hear you very well. Yeah, so what I wanted to say that when we leave people with impression of increase and send good energy, yes, and empower them and make them feel great, we also will have that great energy. Yeah, because the energy which we send also we get the same. Yeah, and this is a very good habit to really meet everyone as he is the most important person. Treat him this way, listen, empower them, and this is how we can really create very powerful teams within our organizations.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, John, for being an amazing guest in our podcast, and I'm looking forward to meet you again, and we will discuss our next topic.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Bye, everyone.
Yeah. Bye bye.